Hello, this is Jeff Robertson with Penton Audio USA, and this tutorial video was how to configure your PSS-AS touchscreen microphone paging system when connected with the IDA8 system. This video picks up where the previous video on how to connect and configure your paging microphone stations has left off. In this video we will learn how to set up your screen jump buttons and also your page zone buttons on the PSS-AS touchscreen. Okay, so let's get started. I will launch my IT Studio. As you can see here, I have my PSS-AS console and it is wired to my IDA8C controller unit at the PDC port number 1. To get started, what we first must do is double click and make sure we have your network paging module installed. I've already got mine set up in here. So when you put any of your paging consoles in, you have to actually wire their audio into a channel for the network pager. We do that by going over here to the right in our DSP component and grabbing the PDC audio icon, and we will drag that over, and you have an input and an output. We will play with the output a little bit later, but right now we're just concerned with the input. My PSS-AS console is wired to my port number 1 or A right here. So I am just dragging that into my channel 1 of my network page controller. With this part, all we need to do is open up the network page controller by double clicking, and we will go to our audio 1. What you want to do to make sure, and this is explained in other videos on how to actually navigate your way around the network page controller, but I'll go to my page sources and I see I already have a PSS-AS entered. I can add one and give it any name I want, but I'm going to keep it there. So I will close this, and right here for channel 1 where it says paging source, I will go down and say that's my PSS-AS. So now when I look at all these lists, I know what that is at a quick glance. I will go over to activation. This is where we set up our event. You cannot have any device that's doing any kind of paging through the network page controller without an event telling the network page controller how this audio signal is going to act and be routed. So we will click on activation, and it brings up our activation screen. When you're doing any kind of integrated smart device such as the VoIP or PSS or PPM-AS consoles, always leave your activation mode as none. So what we need to do is create an event. So I'll go to page and events right here, and you can see there's no events there, so we will add an event. But before we do, there are a couple of things that we need to know of. Integration and singular. For any paging console, you want it for integration. And what integration means, when this channel goes active, the network page controller module is looking for more information so it knows which channels to open up to route the audio. If it's singular, that means no matter what's coming in, it will always go to the same group or single zone or all zones or whatever, depending on how you set up the event. So for any of the page consoles, we will set that up for integration, which is the default. We will click on add. We will give this a name, and to make it simple, I'll just say this is our PSS-AS page event. Go to the show. So once we click add, we come up with the actual zone event setup. We could set the priority. You have 1 to 256 levels of priority. I will leave this at level 1 for now. And we need to add an event. We are not going to a single, we are going to a range. And this will be the total amount of zones that you would need buttons for. If you have 32 zones, then you might want to put 1 to 32. If you're going to have an all-call button or whatever, then you might want to put 33 and make that 33rd your all-call button. For right now, I am just going to say 1 to 16 and click OK. Now, as you can see, the minute I did that, my IDA8C is right here. My IDA8S is right here. I can actually open this up. Here's the codes, and here are all the zones that are possible on each of the IDA8. There's 16 on the IDA8C, which you can see right there. And if I open up the second one right here, there's the IDA8S, and there's the 16 possible zones available on the IDA8S. And the reason there is 16 is because on the network page controller, there's only 16 outputs that you could possibly route audio outside of. I just set the event up, and I did not map any codes to any of the outputs audio nodes on the right-hand side of the network pager. And the reason is very simple. We are going to go back to the Devices tab, and I will now double click on the PSS console. Now we're getting ready to set this up. And the reason we didn't want to do that is if I go to paging right here, when I bring this up, here's my PSS page event. Now you see the keys are the keys actually on the PSS console. There are 12 keys on every single page. There are 14 total pages with 12 keys to give you 256 possible places to put any kind of button. And I can scroll through my other pages, and as you can see, each one of them has 12 buttons. If I go to page 1, it defaults to 1 to 12, and if I go to page 2, there's my 13 through 16 because there's only 12 buttons. And that's the default, but I don't want to set this up this way because what we first want to do is we want to set up our jump buttons. And to do a jump button, we first have to create an event for the actual jump button. So when we push the button, the event will say, hey, this is a jump button and we're going over to this screen. So what we will do is I will go to my event manager, and there's the event window right there. We would click on that, and you can see the event that we've already created, or all the events that we've created at this point would be in this window. So we will add an event. I will call this jump 1, and the mode that it is, or the type, is right down at the bottom, PSS-AS jump page, and we will click OK. Let's create another one. We will call this jump 2, and our type is another PSS-AS jump button. So for every jump button you would create, or screen jump button, you would need to create an event here. You have to kind of have an idea how you want this to look before you start getting too deep into programming, because what you don't want to do is get into the program and mapping keys and then find out you wanted to change something. You got to go in and remap all your keys because you threw the order off. So we've created that, so we can go back to